This is the In Focus podcast from The Hindu.
We have never seen something as such what is happening in Gaza. It's a catastrophe. And for us, this is very dangerous because accusing a journalist without having a proof, as if you are putting a bounty over their head, for us, this is plain murder. It's very dangerous to see that in war zones and conflict zones, journalists are becoming a target. It's not easy to cope.
This is In Focus, and I'm Anupama Chandrasekaran. In the heart of Gaza City, a small media tent stood as one of the last windows to the outside world. Inside, four journalists were documenting life in a city under siege. On the night of August 10th, 2025, an Israeli drone strike destroyed that window. All the four journalists were killed.
Israel's military says it's killed prominent Al Jazeera correspondent Anas al-Sharif in a strike in Gaza City, which also claimed the lives of four of his colleagues. The broadcaster said that the strike hit a tent for reporters outside the Al-Shifa hospital.
Since the war began on October 7, 2023, Gaza has become one of the deadliest places in the world for journalists. Nearly 200 journalists have died, many targeted while trying to tell the stories of civilians trapped in the crossfire. Schools, hospitals, and homes lie in ruins. Food, water, and medicine are scarce. Gaza, a narrow coastal strip home to over 2 million people, and the West Bank, home to 3 million, have been caught in a devastating cycle of attack and blockade. Hamas's assault on Israel triggered a massive military response, but the civilians and those trying to report on their lives have paid the heaviest price. Our guest today is Sarah Qudah, Middle East and North Africa Regional Director at the Committee to Protect Journalists. She will help us understand what it means for journalists to report from Gaza, the evidence used to target them, and what can be done to protect those still risking their lives to tell the story. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Anu.
Sarah, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and the work Committee to Protect Journalists does to protect media people all over the world?
Yes, of course. So, as you mentioned, I'm the regional director for the Middle East and North Africa at the Committee to Protect Journalists. Our work is at the Committee to Protect Journalists is focused on, first of all, documenting what's happening for the journalists on the ground in the MENA region, and of course the entire world, but my focus is the MENA region, where we document any kind of violations towards journalists and press freedom. In Gaza, things are different because we not only document violations, we document life threats and the killing of journalists. This is one of the things that we do, but also on the other hand, we do a lot of advocacy work and advocacy effort to support journalists and to advocate for press freedom, to advocate for the protection of freedom. In Gaza, we advocate for protection, but we also advocate for international media to go inside Gaza to be able to report and document. We also support journalists in direct assistance, whether it was legal, financial, psychosocial support, digital security. So this is, in a nutshell, what we do at the Committee to Protect Journalists and what we've been trying to do for Gaza since the war started.
Great. And just to clarify, when you mention MENA, you're talking about Middle
The
East
Middle
and
East
North
and North
Africa.
Africa. Yes.
Okay. Can you walk us through how the situation in Gaza has unfolded since the war began and what the latest conditions are like for civilians and journalists on the ground?
Unfortunately, the war in Gaza is the deadliest in our history. Since CPJ started, since the Committee to Protect Journalists (CPJ) started to document all over the world, we have never seen something as such what is happening in Gaza. It's a catastrophe. Journalists are living and working under difficult circumstances. In addition of being displaced, losing their homes, losing their loved ones, their families, their colleagues, they are also uh, documenting the war that they are living. And this is something very difficult to do when you don't have a home and you don't feel protected. Journalists, most of the journalists in Gaza faced smear campaigns against them, where Israel, other journalists, and even citizens were targeting them and trying to discredit the value of the reporting they are doing. And sometimes, in many cases, these smear campaigns led to the killing of those journalists, just like what we saw with Anas and his colleagues and other journalists. As CPJ, we documented at least 26 journalists inside Gaza who has been targeted and killed, and we consider those as murder cases. In addition to this, journalists in Gaza are facing starvation, just like the community that they live in. They do not have enough food. They are not being able to receive any humanitarian aid. A few months ago, we did document the starvation and the hunger journalists are facing in Gaza through reporting, and we also reached out to several journalists who sent us videos speaking about the conditions they are living in. And we had this campaign called Voices from Gaza. They spoke about hunger. They spoke about the shelters they are living in. They spoke about the disconnectivity and also about many other conditions that they are facing in Gaza, which is not. It's something very difficult to do when you are trying to live, but also you want to convey the truth and you want to tell the story and do your job. This is the conditions that the journalist in Gaza has been facing for the past 22 months. And with the absence of any international media inside Gaza, the weight is on their shoulders. They are the ones who are telling us what's happening on the ground. They are the ones who are documenting. And because of them, we are being able to see what is happening in Gaza. And they are our window inside Gaza.
Yeah. And when you spoke of Anas, you were talking about the latest episode, right? Which were four
Yes.
journalists, including Anas Al Sharif, Mohammad
So
Kreke.
they were so they were six journalists. Four of them were from Al Jazeera crew, and two other freelancers. But the total was six journalists. Anas Sharif, who was reporting to Al Jazeera for the past 2 years. He became one of the most influential and prominent journalists with Al Jazeera because he was documenting day by day what is happening inside Gaza. He was exposing the killing of the civilians, the hunger, the starvation that is happening inside Gaza. And we believe that his reporting was the reason behind his killing.
When Israel claims that Anas al Sharif was linked to Hamas and military actions, what is CPJ's response to such accusations?
First of all, this is not the first time Israel accused a journalist being part of Israel or engaged in any military action or being a terrorist. It's not the case, unfortunately. And until now, with Anas al-Sharif and the other cases, they did not provide any proof that Anas al-Sharif or the other journalists were engaged in any military action or any terrorism. And for us, this is very dangerous because accusing a journalist without having a proof, you are as if you are putting a bounty over their head and they become a target and you kill them with impunity, with full impunity, with the justification that they are terrorists, but without providing a proof. For us, this is plain murder and it's a very dangerous pattern. Uh, until now, we didn't hear any proof backing what Israel said.
Al Sharif or Anas and his colleagues were reporting on civilian suffering and the distraught conditions in Gaza. How do journalists reporting on sensitive issues become targets affecting press freedom?
Anu, I think that we can see a pattern here whenever there's a journalist all over the world, and it's just not in Israel, but in Israel it becomes deadly. But all over the world, when there's a journalist who is trying to expose the truth, they become a target. Unfortunately, in Israel, Gazan journalists are becoming not only targets, but they are paying the price with their life, not the freedom as the rest of the world. I think that the clear message that Israel is sending the world, that any journalist who will try to tell the truth, expose what's happening on the ground, document what is happening, will die. So they are killing the witnesses and they are silencing the truth.
And they're also using starvation as a tool. You've said that journalists in Gaza are being starved into silence. Can you tell us what is happening to that effect in Gaza, and uh, what are you kind of hearing and witnessing about what's going on the ground there when you're talking about journalists being starved into silence?
Yes, of course, it's not only journalists who are being starved. And as we said, journalists are civilians. They are part of the community they live in, and the entire Gazans are facing starvation. And journalists are the one who are speaking about the starvation. When we first started speaking about starvation, it was through we are in constant contact with journalists on the ground, speaking to them, trying to take the information directly from them. And they started to tell us about the hunger and starvation in Gaza. There's no more food. Humanitarian aid is not going in. We did write about this, and we raised an alarm that this is happening in Gaza. Unfortunately, things started to become even more worse, and hunger became one of the biggest problems in Gaza. If you are not killed by Israeli airstrike, by being bombed, you will be killed by starvation and hunger. A few journalists were telling us that they are not able to do their job, to wake up in the morning and to work because of the hunger and because they have no food to eat. And this is adding to the difficulties and to the catastrophe that they are facing and living and documenting. Recently, few humanitarian aid trucks were able to go inside Gaza. Unfortunately, we know for a fact that it's not enough for the entire population. It's not enough for those who are facing severe hunger conditions. Hunger is still a problem in Gaza.
When journalists are killed and there's no thorough investigation allowed, what steps should the international community take to hold perpetrators accountable?
First of all, we have the international law that the international community needs to make sure that Israel is adhering to the international law. And this is something that is not happening. There needs to be a call on Israel to stop war crimes against journalists, because killing a journalist as a civilian is a war crime. This is one of the things. The second thing is there's a need for an independent investigation happening in the killing of journalists and the targeting of journalists and the false accusations against journalists. And once an independent investigation happens, accountability and justice needs to happen. Those are the main things that we believe we need at this moment.
We spoke about this earlier too. There have been more than 200 journalists killed in this war since 2023. What does this tell us about the environment for press freedom, not just in Gaza, but in conflict zones globally? What is changing with respect to the security of journalists in conflict zones?
the main message that we are getting is that journalists in conflict zones and war zones are no longer protected as civilians and no longer treated as civilians. And this is very dangerous. It's very dangerous to see that in war zones and conflict zones, journalists are becoming a target with no accountability, with no protection, with no investigations in the attacks that they are facing. And I'm just worried, and I think this is one of the things that at the Committee to Protect Journalists, it's one of our biggest concern, that this pattern becomes the norm, and it becomes those systematic killings and targeting against journalists. It becomes the norm in the entire world, and anyone can accuse a journalist of something and then killing them with a justification that we have a proof that they are terrorists or that they were engaging in military actions and they deserve to be killed, and without providing this proof.
Right, right. In fact, previously also when you spoke about journalists and the starvation of journalists, I was actually reminded of the story by the NPR reporter Anas Baba, who actually kind of wrote about what it is to actually go and get food and how harrowing a journey it is. So it is so important that journalists document what's going on the ground, and like you rightly said, they do need to be treated as civilians.
Yes, 100%. And just to add to what you said, if we no longer have journalists on the ground to document what is happening, international media and the entire world will rely heavily on the official statements, and they will only have one voice, which is the official statement. And most of the time, the official statements all over the world has their own agenda and biases. So we always need the independent reporting, independent investigation, and independent documentation to hold those in power accountable to their actions.
What are some of the immediate actions that the world needs to take, leaders around the world need to take to protect journalists, particularly in Gaza, ensuring that they can report safely, feed themselves, and continue this very important work?
Yes, of course. So I think that one of the first things should be done is that the global leaders call on Israel to stop killing journalists and to push for the international law to be for Israel to adhere to the international law. Protection Protecting journalists is a must. It's not a luxury or a choice. It's something that should have been done, and now it's becoming even more and more a must to be done. Another thing that we feel strongly that has to be done is allowing international journalists inside Gaza. Not because we do not trust Gazan journalists, we trust them. They've been documenting the reality for the past 22 months, but they need their colleagues, their international colleagues, to support them, to document with them, to amplify their voices, to take a little bit of the weight that they've been holding on their shoulders for the past 22 years. So having journalists inside Gaza is one of the important things that we need, because we all know that through the international documentation and reporting, the entire world will see what is happening inside Gaza, and we will stop facing the discrediting of local journalists inside Gaza. So this is something very important, and we feel that now more than ever it has to be done. And I'm hoping that after what happened to Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues, there will be a push towards international media going inside Gaza. At the Committee to Protect Journalists, we have called several times through public letters, statements, engagement with governments. We have called on allowing international journalists inside Gaza. Unfortunately, we were not able to accomplish this, but we will not stop asking for this. In addition to that, journalists need their basic protection, being able to have protection gears, being able to report safely, to have food, to have shelters, and to feel safe.
Yeah. Sarah, after witnessing so much loss and danger for journalists in Gaza, how do you personally cope with the emotional toll of this work? What keeps you motivated to continue advocating for press freedom in such circumstances?
Uh, to be honest, it's not easy. On a personal level and a professional level, it's not easy to cope what is happening in Gaza because it's bigger than anyone. It's not something that I would have ever imagined witnessing in my life or my little kids to witness as well. So it's not easy to cope. And the only thing that makes me go on and wanting to do more is I feel that I am privileged. I live in a safe country. My kids are around me. I have food. I have a job. I have my home and my family, my loved ones protected. And those journalists in Gaza, they don't have any of that. Yet they are waking up every morning, doing their jobs, documenting, trying to tell the world what is happening in Gaza, and they don't have any other choice. So if I am where I am and complaining that I can't cope, I honestly can't do that. I would feel so ashamed. I'm already so ashamed of where our humanity reached, and I can't just say that I can't do this anymore. I can't handle the pain, the stress, the agony, and all of that. I can't do that because I know that there are people inside Gaza who do not have the choice and they do not have the luxury to say these things. And this is the one of the things that keeps me pushing and moving forward every day. Second of all, no matter what we do, it's always too little, too late. We failed. We failed the Gazan journalists inside Gaza. We were not able to protect them. Although we have been doing our best, we were trying to protect them. We were trying to amplify their voices. But eventually, our best is not yet enough. And we need to keep doing more and more to make sure that we are trying to amplify their voices. We are trying to protect them. We are trying to help them in any way that we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. I appreciate you sharing your insights and the very important work that you do. I do hope things change, that we have peace and journalists are able to report safely, and hopefully communities can live without fear. So thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, Anu. I really appreciate all what the international media is doing for the Gazan journalists and for Gaza. And I just want to say that every voice matters, wherever it was, whatever they say, every voice matters. And now it's time for all of us to act and to highlight what is happening inside Gaza.
In Focus will be back soon with analysis of the biggest news issues. In the meantime, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other platforms. Just search for In Focus by The Hindu. We'll see you soon.